Hello, fencing fanatics with Winter Garden Fencing Academy, Orlando Fencing Club, and all of our visitors to the channel. Coach Jason here with a very long overdue episode number 8 of the book reviews. I originally planned to do 10 of these. We're going to wrap it up at 10, and then, occasionally do a book review as I come across a new book here and there, but we'll stop at 10. So let's get to it. Today, we have Fencing to Win by Professor Alf Simmonds and E.D. Morton. Published in 1994, it's about 96 pages, with the first third or so dedicated to foil fencing. These gentlemen also wrote Start Fencing, I believe that's the title of it, which is not in my library. Now, looking these two gentlemen up, I didn't find a whole lot of information. I do know that Professor Simmonds helped start a club in Great Britain. The name eludes me at this moment. But other than that, I couldn't find it. And they say that he was, at the time, one of Britain's leading 3-weapon coaches. This book does cover foil, epee, and saber, but of course we're only going to focus on foil for this. Okay, this book is in few pages, 96 overall and only about a third of it dedicated to foil, is full of details. There's no fluff in this book. And right on the introduction, page 9, I'm going to read you something real quick here. Quote, "It may be objected that in some cases we have decried the value of certain strokes in the fiercely competitive bouts of the present day, while in subsequent passages we have proffered advice on when and how to execute them. It must in the end be the fencer and the fencer alone, with his opponent at sword point, who decides what can and cannot be done with a reasonable chance of success in any given situation. The techniques of all weapons, whether in electric or non-electric form, is or should be the same." Now, basically what he's saying there is that, and it's something that we teach in our academy, right? Both schools. We will teach by the book, a way of doing something by the book. But our fencers are, of course, always free to experiment, and they're free to tailor what we teach them, so long as it works, right? Ignoring the tried and true and adopting something that is constantly failing in competition, we don't want that. So long as it works, that freedom's there. So long as it works, we encourage it. That's basically what he's saying here, is that no matter what, when you're on the strip, you're the judge. This works, this doesn't work. And that's basically what he's saying there. On page 11, the next thing, they don't particularly like the orthopedic grip, quote unquote, the pistol grip. Saying that it doesn't teach the finesse, doesn't teach proper finger play with the foil. And we do disagree with that. And pretty much you don't see any other type of grip in competition these days. The orthopedic grip is what you see. Epee is a little different. They'll use that longer grip, the non-orthopedic grip, simply because it's epee, right? They want to choke back as far as they can. And that still isn't everybody. There are still plenty of epee fencers that use the orthopedic grips. But I've always said that the orthopedic grip is a combination of both the French and the Italian. The French grip, it's a lot of finger play, right? And the Italian grip, with that hook, you hook your fingers around there, and they're technically supposed to use a strap to strap it to the wrist. They're using a lot more forearm, a lot more elbow to do what they need to do. The orthopedic grip is a combination of two. I can direct the tip with my finger and thumb and index finger, but I can also tighten up a little bit and start using my elbow more effectively. So, I disagree with them on the grip, but and I think they've lost that argument effectively because everybody uses an orthopedic grip. Pretty much everybody does. And they go on. I'm not going to read the whole book, but they go on. They talk about the guard and how today's modern guard has a forward inclination, quote unquote. And we teach that here as well. Back in the day, way back when, the guard may have leaned back a little bit. When I learned fencing, 20 years ago, I'm still learning, always learning. But when I started, I was taught that the guard is more central, and it's now more forward, right? We teach our fencers, we don't want to lean forward, but we want to have a slight inclination forward. Our knee is still over our instep. We're not leaning over our toes for various reasons. So definitely agree with that. And he talks about the appel. They say that the appel has absolutely no use, and 99% we agree with that. We teach the appel here. Why? In the younger crowd, the Y8, the Y10s, the appel can be effective. It can startle your opponent, especially a lesser experienced opponent. The authors are absolutely right. Higher levels of fencing, there's no point to stomping your foot, you're not going to get any reaction out of that. But at the lower levels, and especially in the young crowd, yeah, that actually does have a little bit of effect. So we teach it, and we teach it to everyone here, so they're aware of it, so that no one goes, what's an appel? But as far as using it in competition, yeah, not so much. Toward the end of the foil section, there is a tactics chapter. It's not very long, but boy, has it got some good information in there. And one of the things that they talk about is the categorization of types of fencers, whether they're defensive. They call them the defensive fencer, the habitual remise fencer, and the habitual redoublement fencer. Just as an example, the defensive fencer will rarely ever fall for feints or second intention attacks, and they briefly talk about how to deal with that type of fencer. So that's a pretty good section. I like that, and I have fenced people like that before, but they just don't go for anything. They'll just go for a counter almost every time, and so you have to change your tactics. Instead of going for compound actions, probably go for simple, right? Keep it simple and go forward. They also have a great left-handed section that they talk about against strategies against left-handed fencers. And we teach it here, and I'll be the first to admit, I choke against left-handed fencers. At the last tournament I did, I choked against a left-handed fencer. He was an E-rated fencer. It was the only one that I did not score on all day, right, in the tournament, the only one. But when it comes down to it, what they say in here and what we say also is there's no magic recipe there. It's just the angles of the body are reversed. And so there are far fewer left-handed fencers, so right-handers don't get the practice. And when they do come across them, it's odd, right? And you have to change your hand position in order to hit. You have to change your strategy in order to hit against the lefty. Lefties, on the other end, fence righties all the time in practice. There's far more right-handed fencers, so they're not, quote-unquote, freaking out as much. Okay? But put a lefty against a lefty, and oh boy, that's going to be fun, right? So, yeah, that's a pretty good chapter on that as well. Another thing they say in the tactics section is you can never be too clever. So in other words, if you're doing something that works and is working in the bout, don't change it. Don't change it until your opponent figures it out. And that's another thing we emphasize here too, right? If you're losing the bout, you definitely need to change. If you're winning the bout, keep doing what you're doing. That makes sense, right? So, do I recommend this book? Absolutely. This is a fascinating read. They interject with the different, while they're explaining certain techniques, right? They've got a glossary in the back. They go through all the types of, not all, but they go through all of the attacks and the defenses and all that good stuff. And they'll interject on the difference between pre-electric and electric at times. They'll say, well, this worked then, but probably not so good now. We recommend doing this. That's fantastic. This is not a book for the young, the kids, and it's not a book for those inexperienced, because they throw so much terminology in it. And even with the glossary, if you don't know what a remise is, if you don't know what a redoublement is, if you don't know what a stop hit is, reading about it's not going to clarify that for you. You need to see it. So if you don't have a lot of experience bouting, or have a lot of lessons under your belt, they're going to run through this and you're going to kind of go, I don't know really what he's talking about. I've never seen that. I can't visualize that. So yeah, having some experience under your belt would help you read this. Do I recommend this? Absolutely. This is a great book. 1994, it's not too dated, but you can find these still. There's plenty of them on eBay for under $10. So this is not a hard book to get. If you want to grab one and add one to your library, I do highly recommend this. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's a short, fast episode. I've got 2 more to do for this particular series. And I was talking to someone up at the shop the other day about fencing movies, and I thought that might be a pretty good video. I'm not going to do a series on them. I might do one video where I highlight certain movies that are really good for showcasing fencing, not necessarily the sport of fencing, because there's very few movies that do that. But gentlemen, please up. Maybe we can put up some criteria. Say, okay, this qualifies as a fencing movie. I don't think Conan the Barbarian, as awesome as that movie is, qualifies as a fencing movie, right? So anyway, enjoy, and see you in class. Bye.